All right. Well, there I am. Okay. Oh. Well, we found out that there's a button that just cancels everything.
Well, you need one of those.
Oh,
in life.
Do we?
In life, we do. Imagine.
And now I'm hearing like myself somewhere else. Hang on. Are these your headphones? No, I'm unplugging those.
No.
Let me see if that gets rid of that. Oh my God. It's like we're falling over ourselves here this morning. All right, here we are. Good morning, everybody. What a lot of fun.
After a hard reset.
Jesus. I'm still hearing like myself. Where are they? Oh, these monitors are up or something. Ah! Okay, that's gone. Yes. Let me just hear. Oh,
it's like when you take your first medication as a schizophrenic, that relief.
Well, I'm still not relieved. I'll lose my mind. Poor Ryan got here this morning and we didn't have a key for the front door.
Oh.
Yeah.
So how did you eventually get in?
I broke the window. No, I'm kidding.
You just drove through the front door.
I was thinking about that. So Ryan phones me on the way here. I've got to introduce our guest host for the morning, which I'll get to in a second. But I'm on my way in here and Ryan phones me and I'm like about two-thirds of the way here. And he says, "Oh, do you have a key?" So I asked him, "I've never had a key. No one would trust me with that."
No.
So he goes, "Oh, okay." So I said, "Well, what's the problem? What's the key for?" He goes, "The front door."
Oh dear.
Like, I don't know how we're going to get in here. Anyway, it turns out that they had to wake someone up and God alone knows. Anyway, here we are. Ricky says that cancel button is called a woke button. Yeah, well, because it cancels everything. Exactly.
Yeah.
Here it is. I found it.
Don't press it again.
I'm not going to press that button again. Holy shit. I don't know what that is. Anyway, imagine Gareth with the nuclear code, says Carl. Oh, oops. I just found out there's a button that cancels everything. Fucking hell, mate.
Yeah.
I was listening to... it doesn't matter. I'll get to that in a second. Let's first get to this man. I love this guy. Siv Ngesi. How the hell are you? You beautiful.
Great, thanks. And you? Great, thanks. And you?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm glad you got to hear how unprofessional we are this morning when we couldn't unlock the studio and I found the cancel everything button. And I mean, it's like a mental hospital here with the patients are in charge of the hospital. You know what I mean?
Don't worry, Gareth. The people who run this country are definitely more disorganized than you. At least the lights are on in your place. So
I feel like I'm Becky Cele or Praveen Gordon or one of those incompetent people. I really do. I mean, like I didn't even know which button to press this morning. And I mean, that's not hard. I always say to people, like DJs and radio people are not very smart. By and large, they're among the dumbest. They're among the dumbest people. Like you know, if you're a car mechanic, people need you, right?
So the thing is, you need to know a little bit about everything.
Well, no, but I'm talking about like their actual skill set. Like I should be able to know which button is which. That's kind of in the job description. Like if you're a car mechanic and you the first thing you do is connect two wires, the whole car blows up, then you're not a very good mechanic. And if you're a nurse and you go in and you're treating someone who's got like bladder infection and you poke their eye out with a syringe, then you're not really a good nurse. You know, that's what I was doing this morning. So I don't know that I'm as competent. I think I'm, being a politician, there's no skill set really. Not today. I mean,
we've seen their CVs.
There's a guy in Virginia, I think it is, or Pennsylvania, called John Fetterman, who just won the Senate seat there. Governor or senator, one of the two. Anyway, he has brain damage.
Okay.
But like proper, like he can't read. He can't speak half the time.
So it's like speech impairment, maybe some cognitive function.
No. He's brain damaged.
Yeah.
He can't do what you would think a senator or whatever, he'd have to talk. This guy can't talk. He became a senator. It shows you that the politician class, they have there's no rule. There's no you don't have to be or do anything if you're a politician. You could be brain damaged and do the job. Anyway, I'm being rude. How are you, dude? What's news?
Me, I'm good, man. Day by day, doing my thing, offending people here and there, doing my thing, and continuously being myself.
Well, I got to ask you about something, and I don't mean to like scratch at wounds, but when your mum died, which is now, it's a couple of months, and I mean, you and your mother were extremely close. She was the number one person in your world. And I kind of watched from a distance because I wouldn't claim to be one of your close friends, although I care about you. And, I sent you a message and it was such a beautiful thing to see your tribute to your mother. And you continue to kind of make tribute to her. And I've just got to say, without ever having met this woman, I was in awe of her.
Oh, what a beast. Absolute beast. So when you ask me how I'm doing, like, I'm not well. You know what I mean? Like,
no, sure.
I'm definitely, I'm a corpse compared to what I used to be. And that sounds like an exaggeration. But I've realized that me at my worst is some people's best. So I just keep on going.
Good point.
But it really did knock me for six. And anyone listening, you don't realize how bad it is until it's happened to you. So it's been the most difficult experience of my life. But weirdly, creatively, and like, I do feel like a better person, and I feel like a better creative human, if you know what I mean. But that seems like such a weird thing to say. But there is this weird thing about darkness that just has actually brought something out of me. But it's just an unbelievable deep hole in your heart that just never goes away. And when you are happy, you remember that, oh, wait a minute, don't forget your mom's dead. And then you're like, go, whoosh, and you just like, every day is like that. Every day. So now I can control the tears now, which has been, a great little strength to have.
Yeah.
But it is, I don't think we talk enough about it. We don't talk enough about it. We don't talk enough about grief. We don't talk enough about pain. We don't talk enough about loss. I realized after losing my mother is people don't deal well with death.
No.
The awkward messages.
You mean people sent you weird messages?
Yeah, like the weirdest things. But I think it's quite interesting because people don't know what to say. The first thing they do is make it about themselves. It's weird. It's weird. Like I don't know what I would do if I lost my mother. Oh my God, I don't know what. It's quite like thinking. And then another thing that helped me, and I think, was grieving publicly. Because I shared her publicly, I grieved publicly, which ended up drawing people into my private messages who've gone through the same thing, and then we all went through the process together. Or someone lost their mother the day before mine, and then as we're going along, they'll be like, okay, are you at this stage? Like, yeah, bro, it's so weird. Like, sometimes you get to the stage of actually being jealous of people having mothers. Now, that is the weirdest thing ever.
Wow. That's a hell of an admission, huh?
Like, you see them. Oh, there's another admission I'm going to give you that's actually pretty sad and hard to even admit. You see people and you go, you have a mother. And then there's a part of me that's like, actually, I'm not even going to tell you to love them because you should be loving your mother anyway. And there's this other darkness of my mother was overweight, of me being angry at her. Me going, damn it, Mom, you could have changed this. And then I see other people who are overweight, and then I go, it is weird, like thingy. And there's another part of grief that it's hard to admit, and it's the first time I've admitted it on a public platform. When someone loses their mother, I'm like, okay, now you're gonna feel what I felt, and that's just that's the scariest thing ever. Of me just going, okay, now you're gonna feel what I felt.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then,
holy hell.
It's even wording it. It's difficult to word, because if my mother came back, if someone told me 3 days later, oh, sorry, we were just joking, your mom's still alive, I realized that there's no way of loving her enough to make the pain less. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like,
like there's nothing you could have done. Right.
Yeah. But then I just want to say one last like comment about, okay, we could talk about more, but I remember going to go dress her. You dress your mother. You don't have to dress her physically, but you bring the clothes. So like going there, finding her outfit, and then, oh, panties and bra, going through her panties and bra cabinet and getting a pair or whatever, and making sure it's clean and whatever, getting there and them laughing at me going, oh, people don't wear bras and panties in their coffin. No one, because their tits are frozen down and their legs are shut. You know what I mean?
Oh, man.
But then I thought to myself, my mother's told me all my life to wear clean underwear because just in case something happens to you. No.
Right.
But to round it up,
hold on. What did you choose for your mom, like panties wise?
I literally chose the most boring mother panties that were flipping maroon.
Yes.
Maroon, boring cack. But then, my biggest lesson in life was seeing my mother on this metal steel table. And it looks like a butchery in this mortuary, which they have to improve at. And I remember fixing her sock and feeling ice on her sock, right? And then looking down and thinking, I'm not going to tell you I love you here. What the fuck is the use of me telling you I love you here? I told you I loved you all my life. I loved you all my life. And I think some people tell their mothers or their fathers or their friends that they love them at that place where they're fixing the cold sock. And me, I was just like, nah, bro. But when I ended up crying, was a cry of not she's dead. It was like a cry of, oh my God, you're so beautiful. And then it comes over you like a little tingling feeling. And my friends who've had kids say that's the feeling of love when they first see their kids. And then I saw it at the end when my mother was on the mortuary table of just going, oh my God, she's so beautiful. I love you so much. And it does this thing and it consumes you to a point of like, you're going to pass out, but it's like a little weird kind of like someone's taking, like you've been suffocated, but like where you've been suffocated with like love. And I'm not the most airy fairy person in the world, you know that, but it like consumes you, man. I don't ever want to love anyone or anything like I loved her. And then you can feel your heart does this thing of just going, did you see how that hurt? Okay, let's protect you now. And you become like this wraps your heart in something. And then you just like, you don't want to go through that. Oh my God, it's so bad. But yeah, I'm alive.
Dude. Well, I mean, listen, I couldn't have brought you back on the show months later and not talked about this. And I think you tell the story beautifully. I mean, listen, this is not something anyone wants, but it's something all of us have to go through, right? In the course of natural things, the parent does not outlive the child. That's just how it works.
You know.
So I mean, for those of us who don't know yet, one day we're gonna know.
Yeah,
what's gonna happen.
So when my mother lost her mother at 98, my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer. My mother was like, we need another opinion. And I was like, another opinion?
98.
The opinion is that she's going to die.
Yeah.
And my mother cried. I remember looking at her going, she's 98, woman, relax, man. And now I'm like, okay.
I get it.
Okay. I'm like, I get it.
I also saw something of yours that I want to hear your comment on here. Just last week, like a friend of yours, some homeless dude, like threw a brick at her car or something. And this is so funny, Leigh-Ann. This guy is like, that motherfucker, I'm going to go and get him. So he films like his reaction. And he shows the car, and then he gets in his car, and he goes. He's going to go and find this guy
because it's just happening.
Who vandalized this car? You couldn't find him. I wish you had, because I would have liked to have seen you beat him up. And people are like, oh well, if it's a homeless person, you're not allowed to judge them. There's this weird thing that happens in society that if someone is poor or unfortunate or they on tick or whatever, that suddenly you can't go over there and mete out some justice on them, because we know that the justice system is not going to do it, right? This is not a country where the police force actually do what the police force is meant to do. So you go out there to fuck this guy up. And I'm like, yes, I was part of this. I was on board for the whole story. And then I was so disappointed you didn't find the guy.
So the girl was coming to my house, right? And she says, down the road it happened. So then she gets it. And I said to her, why didn't you call me? I would have been there. And then she's like, no, I knew you were going to hurt him. And I said, yeah, because he can't pay you back. So I have to fuck him up. We need some sort of accountability up in this motherfucker. And then I was like, so then I looked for him. We were going everywhere looking for him. And she thought that I was going to have the common decency of talking to him. I was not going to talk. I was going to live post me fucking him up. And like, for me, it shows you that what the problem is in this flipping country is that this accountability is not a regular thing, to the point that people just, she was like, no, I was like, no, he threw a brick at a car. He needs to know that when he does it again, he has to get his ass whooped.
Right. I just wish you had the chance to do this. I was so goddamn annoyed, and I could see you were too. And I'm also sick of these good people, right? There are good people in the world who mean well, but they just have no appreciation for cause and effect. And whenever something like this happens, they're always trying to make excuses for people. And they think somehow it makes them sound like good people. But actually, we need accountability and we need justice. Like I've gone full circle. I went from being someone, you're gonna find this probably kind of stupid, but I think it's quite a revelation to me. I went from being one of those people who was pro death penalty as a 20-something kid at varsity, and I was like, oh no, the death penalty is a good thing, and I'll tell you why. And even though we were studying law, and this was a big subject at the time, because the famous case State versus Mokanyane was the one that we were basing our conversations on. Anyway, this turned me 180 degrees, and suddenly I was one of those people who was very much against the death penalty. I was like, this is not something we should have. It's a barbaric relic of our past, and if the state kills people, that makes the state as bad as the killer, kind of thing in my head. And I think I'm going round to the other side now. I'm like, no, there are some people, like someone who like rapes a child or whatever. There's just no reason. There's no reason that person should be kill. Right. And the state should have a way to kill those people. And I reckon, like in some small way, this is just because our system has become so effete and so incompetent and so useless at actually doing what it's there to do, that now I almost feel like we need to now get to a point where we can actually, because this country and this earth is just full of shit people who need to be put out of their misery, so that the rest of us can live happily.
Being put out of their misery, that's the key point.
Yeah.
A lot of these people who are really, far into the horrible crimes that we're mentioning, those people are miserable, and some of them wish they weren't like they were. Some of them want to die. Some of them want to be killed or to be caught or to be locked up or to have the death penalty. They actually, because they know that they're beyond healing.
Well, I mean, look at this. This is a comment for you, Siv. Ancient Ether says, great news you didn't find him. Violence is gross. Okay, now, I don't know who Ancient Ether is, and I'm not going to make any guesses about the kind of world that Ancient Ether lives in, except to say that clearly this is a person, I'm going to guess probably female, because women talk like that about violence, because violence is not a part. No, it's not a part of many women of a certain social status. It's not a part of their lives. So violence is something that they can condemn in movies. They can complain about on the playground. They can pretend it's a toxic masculinity thing because they don't deal with violence. But the world is still a very violent place. There are men in uniform who are protecting countries' borders, who are going to fight against ideological enemies. There is a huge amount of violence in the world, not to mention the fact that there are so many women in this world who are dealing with domestic violence, who are dealing with men who are out of control. And there are men who are fighting each other for money, like Jake Paul and what's his name, Fury, the guy who took on Tommy Fury, I think it is, last night. Anyway, this is something like Ancient Ether. I'm sorry, but like you're just living in a different universe. Am I right?
I am an understander that at some point the only way to actually answer some things is violence. And that may be my toxic masculinity side of me. But like, I'm just like I even see kids screaming at teachers and hitting teachers. And I'm like, if I went home after murdering a teacher, no, I would not go home. My mother would have absolutely annihilated me.
Right.
Absolutely.
With physical violence, I might add. Right?
Violence. And for me, even though she's dead, I can still feel her beatings. Every time I walk and I meet people, I'm like, hey, sir, hey, ma'am. She's still my continuous conscience. She's still the one that's holding me accountable continuously. For me, violence. But let me tell you one thing. If someone is murdering a kid to the point of abuse, I am the first to throw a fist or a punch the person who's abusing the kid. There's a level of, sometimes as humans, we can judge what is wrong or right. There's a, here, okay. But here, then we must jump in, But the world has become quite weird. Even the other day, talking about accountability, I slaughtered a cow.
Yes.
At mom, that was great. A great transition. Multi-award winner. On Saturday, we slaughtered a cow. We slaughtered a cow at my father's to release my father's spirit. And I took a picture and it said short story, a knife, and blood. Right? Vegans came. Wow! Wow!
Yeah.
And then I wrote a post going, actually, if you have a complaint, fuck you. Right? And then I realized I'm not compelled to explain what is happening, but it's an honor to actually explain what is happening. What is happening is that we slaughter a cow to release my dad's spirit, right? And then everyone in the neighborhood is allowed to come and eat. Perfect strangers, enemies, anyone is allowed to eat. The cow at 6 o'clock we started slaughtering. At 6:30 the meat was ready. Right, I tell you, 70% of the flipping cow was gone in like an hour. By 12 o'clock the whole cow was finished. Right? How beautiful is that? That random strangers come in, they eat, they have a good time. We're merry, we're women have their own section where they eat. It was beautiful. I wasn't trying to justify it.
You don't have to justify shit. No, I mean, you paid for the cow, first of all. How is that any different? And all these people who think they're superior because they go and buy it at Woolworths in the meat section.
Or eat it in a restaurant.
Like they're not superior. And as for the vegans who are like hugely touchy about you and me eating meat, but they're not very upset about the leather shoes or the jacket or any of that other stuff. It's pure hypocrisy. And this idea, and this goes back to kind of what, the whole thing about violence that you were talking about and trying to find this homeless guy through a brick at your friend's car, is like there are certain people who have started to think that we're suddenly way better than anyone who's come before us.
Yes.
Like we're just
oh my goodness.
We're morally superior. Like I have such a problem with this. Like you judge people in history. You say that, they were so backward. And, we've managed to transcend violence. We've managed to transcend eating meat. I'm somehow a better creature walking the earth with like all of this consciousness and all of this. I'm wide open to like, modernity and you can condemn everyone who came before you. It's so easy to do that, which is just nonsense. You are not better than any of our ancestors. You're actually probably quite a lot worse because you don't know how to survive. If I put you out in the wild now, you would be fucked.
Yeah. So it's so funny you talk about that. I see the way the world is working. Like even the wokeness, you can feel the wokeness in the cancel culture is actually starting to.
Right.
It's starting to get less and less and less. It's starting to. There is some it's like fashion. Fashion just comes in like these circles.
It's falling out of fashion. Yeah.
Yeah. So you see like for example, women have been fighting for their rights for hundreds of years. Fighting for your rights isn't new. Like women have been doing incredible things, burning passes, doing things during apartheid. Apartheid wouldn't have ended without women. It would have never ended without women. Like women were doing incredible things, keeping households, being punished, crazy things happening to them. So online, sometimes they act like it's a new thing. And I'm like, no, women have been fighting for years, for hundreds of years for equality. And like it's this weird little circle thing that everyone thinks that we are the ones that came up with this. We are the ones that have. I'm so like, no,
It's not a trend.
No.
It's not a,
yeah. And my favorite thing. Are you right there, Leigh-Ann? I mean, what is that?
It just got me all emotional.
Oh, okay. All right, listen. Speaking of getting all emotional, now Siv and Leigh-Ann, you guys are going to bear witness to our first ever UnStuck. Now, this is with Dr. Hanan, who, of course, is our renowned psychologist. He's the head of the Anxiety and Trauma Clinic in Johannesburg. And you might remember, I read an email that Megan sent me a while back. It's not Megan and Megan and Harry, Megan, but there's a different Megan. She listens to us. She said she's having a conflict with her mom because, they're going to explain the whole thing themselves. Her mom is a little bit unhappy about, she feels a bit used. Megan feels like her mom is suddenly, turning her back on them for a thing that they've been doing as a family for a while. And I thought it might be fun to bring Dr. Hanan in here and he can ask the questions and he can see if he can iron this out. Now, they don't hate each other. They're not going to drive to each other's houses and beat each other up. But I'm going to get Carol, who's Megan's mom, on. Hey, Carol, how are you?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, team.
Morning. You seem like a very sweet person, Carol. I can't believe you and Megan are fighting like this. But here's Megan. Hey, Megan, you also seem like a very sweet person too. And you and your mother are obviously in a situation now here. You want to try and resolve this problem. So I'm going to let you have Dr. Hanan all to yourself, and Siv and Leigh-Ann and I are just going to observe, and maybe we can learn something from this. So, Dr. Hanan, the final piece of the puzzle. How are you, sir?
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Okay.
Good. All right. Will you help these two women to figure out their problem? And let's start off with Megan's email. So, Megan, just explain, like in a couple of sentences, why you emailed me in the first place.
Basically, it was because you were talking to someone about the Northern Lights, and my mom piqued an interest, and she was supposed to come with me to Mauritius and my family, so I could get a bit of a break from the kids. I've got 3 small kids. And then she came to my house that day and she said, "Oh, you must listen to this. I'm actually going to go and do that rather." And I was like, "What?"
Okay. I just want to know, purely out of curiosity, like, were you going to pay for her to come to Mauritius, or did she pay for herself?
We were going to pay half. We were going to pay half for her to come with.
And now she'd rather go. She would rather go off to the Northern Lights with Professor David Block, which, it sounds to me like, she wants to have a holiday for herself and not be your glorified nanny. But I'm not going to get involved in this. So, Carol, is that a fair characterization of the problem from your point of view?
No, not really, because I was going to pay for myself full 100%. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. All right. No. It is more or less correct. Yeah, she's got it right.
More or less.
They were all going to go to Mauritius, and until I heard Professor Block on your show a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, and then I decided, the Northern Lights has always been on my bucket list. And when he said there that you shouldn't go on a cruise, because I wanted to go with friends of mine on a cruise and witness it, he said no. Then I decided, okay, I'm going to contact him, which I did, and I'm on his list, but I'm still organizing passports and visas and whatever. But yeah, so that's where we are at the moment. And I don't feel that I should, sacrifice what I want to do. Mauritius can wait.
Okay, so Carol, I want to ask you a couple of things. So I'll start with you, Carol. What's your relationship like with your daughter and the grandchildren?
Excellent.
Excellent.
It is excellent. Yeah.
And how much do you value spending time with the grandchildren?
The grandchildren, I've got 6. I have 6 grandchildren.
Sure.
The 3 of them from Megan and 3 from my other daughter. I value it more than anything else except my own happiness.
So are you saying your own happiness comes before your relationship with your grandchildren?
It probably is part of the mix in who I am and what's making me happy. So I can't really say one above the other.
Okay.
And part of what makes me happy.
Okay, and specifically with the Northern Lights, is there any way that you could see it at a later stage, or is this kind of the only opportunity? And if you miss this opportunity, it's gone forever?
No, it's always going to be there. And there's a certain time in the year, apparently you need to go in March, where it's the coldest and the clearest of the sky, etc. So you've basically got 1 month in a year to witness it.
Okay, and my last question to you is, do you think you're being taken advantage of by your daughter by her asking you to come with? Do you think you're going to be the glorified nanny? Do you think that she's using you unfairly? Do you think you're being taken advantage of?
I know her intentions are good, and she will, she'll say, don't worry, you can have time to go on your own, or we can walk with the children or whatever, or she and I can go for a walk and go for a swim or whatever. But I think I will feel that because they're around me and we all love to be together, I will want to spend time with them.
Okay, and Megan, why do you think it's important? Why would it be cool to have your mother with you?
She knows exactly why, because my kids are not going to be small forever. She adores our children. I have a little girl that's going to be 2 in May, and she's not going to be little forever. And my mother thinks she's everything. She thinks she's amazing, and she cries if they have any sight of hardship in their life, like I don't give them sweets and they're upset. She will get teary. So I think she's lying. She does want to come with me, and she should come with me. And she knows that I'm not going to just like pawn the kids off on her. There's kids clubs there. I've explained it to her. We'll be relaxing. But can I just throw a span in the works here? Because there's another person involved in this who is how old is Nana, Mom? 89?
Yes.
She's 88 or 89. So 89. Every time we go to Mauritius, I send her photos and videos, and she says, oh, Grandpa said before he died, when he retires, he's going to take me to Mauritius. He passed away just after he retired. I wanted to take my mom and Nana to Mauritius and have her live out that experience that my grandpa promised her before he passed away. And
so this would be your kid's great grandmother?
That's right. And let me just say, my mom's so my great granny, so my kid's great granny was 105, and she died 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
You're lucky she died a couple of years ago. You'd be paying for her as well, Meg.
Yeah, Jesus, I know.
How much money are you spending bringing all these old folks with you?
No, look, my mom has got a brother in the UK, and he would possibly contribute. We haven't spoken to him about it yet, I don't think. And there are other siblings of my mom. So to do this for Nana would be really nice. And I said what the plan was, because I love my Nana, and I would spend a lot of time with Nana, and my kids adore her too. And my mom could be with my kids when they aren't like at the kids area. There's people that take care of your kids in the day. So, and yes, I am spoiled. I know that. But it would have just been a nice thing to do that this year. So number one, Nana Stella is 88 or 89. She's not going to be around forever. My kids are not going to be 2 forever. The Northern Lights have been there forever. So,
all right. Let's let Dr. Hanan take control of this.
Okay.
Right? You plead your case. Now let's go.
That's my case.
Right. Carol, I want to ask you something. Is it a financial thing? I mean,
Carol or Megan?
Carol. Is it a financial thing? Is it a financial thing? Is that a financial thing? I mean, do you need your daughter to pay for it? Can you pay for it yourself? I'm talking about going to Mauritius.
Yeah, we can take finances out of the equation. But I must just say that I know this is like first world problems, and I don't want to minimize anybody else's. I must just say that this is just comfortable issues.
No, you don't have to explain it. We want to talk about this because this is the kind of thing that mom and daughter often have arguments about in all kinds of families. So it doesn't matter what the actual situation is here. I mean, the fact that poor old Megan is going to end up with like her mom and her mom's mom. I mean, it's just.
I would love it. I would love it. I would love that.
If I can just add, I am living my best life at the moment. I'm retired and I do work, but so for me, after 43 years of teaching, I come first now.
Okay, so
go for it, Doc.
Go for it.
So Carl DeSantis says, Carol, stop being a Grinch. Go to Mauritius with your incredibly privileged and spoiled daughter.
Yeah. Exactly, in a nutshell.
Okay, so based on this information, I want to mention two fundamental things before I give you my opinion and my verdict. First of all, perspective. Carol, to your point, we're dealing with first world problems. I mean, we're deciding whether you should go to see the Northern Lights or go to Mauritius, for God's sake. So in the greater scheme of things, you're both very blessed and you're both very lucky. You seem to have the most magnificent relationship and interaction. So that's perspective is important. This is a win-win situation. There's no losing position here. The second thing is that I really value, and it seems as you do too, relationships and interactions. Gareth, you discussed this on the show, grief and loss. And we know that life is really unpredictable and life is short. And at the end of our lives, we know that people look back and they don't remember the things that they've done. They remember the interactions that they've had, the people that made them laugh, the people that made them cry, the people that they danced with. They remember not necessarily the holidays, but the holidays that they had with someone. So relationships and interactions, that's a kind of thing that's a snapshot that makes our lives more meaningful. So based on everything that I've heard and this information, I believe that, Megan, you are being reasonable in wanting your mother to come along to Mauritius to help you with the children and connect with the grandchildren. However, also do understand, Carol, your desire to see the Northern Lights. In my verdict, I would suggest that the family does go to Mauritius with the mother, with Megan as planned, as this will allow you, Megan, Carol, to connect with the children, to create memories, to create meaningful interactions. I would also suggest that the family plans out to go see the Northern Lights at another time, but go and spend quality time with the kids. You'll never regret it. There's no ways that you'll come back regretting the interaction.
Judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah, I reckon Dr. Hanan is ruled, but I'll tell you, I see, this is why I'm not a psychologist. I would have given exactly the opposite advice. I would have said, just go and do your thing, Carol. I mean, somebody in the comments very unkindly said, what if you kick the bucket before you get to see the Northern Lights? But I
remember.
It's fine.
Remember, guys. Remember, guys. We're not saying go see the Northern Lights or go sit at home and watch Netflix. We're saying go see the Northern Lights or go spend time with your family. This is the kind of interaction that you'll never regret. You will get to see. If you don't get to see the Northern Lights, you still have this incredible memory to look back on and go, I'm glad I did it. Nobody ever travels with their family, especially this kind of relationship. It's a pure, good relationship and regrets it. Go and enjoy it.
Well, a lot of hashtag free Carol from so a lot of people seeing Carol as a slave to her daughter here, and some other people say, oh yeah, and some people say they're taking her along because she's a nanny, she's being abused, and then Parallel Parking says hashtag ignore Dr. Hanan. So you know what? They're gonna please everybody there.
So we're going to choose our poison.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, as you've both already intimated, it's not like you came on here to bitch about your lives. This is a nice problem to have. Carol, either way, I think you've earned whatever the decision is here.
She has.
And Megan, I don't think you're being a bitch about this. I think you really do genuinely want your mom, and in this case, your gran as well, and your kids to spend time together. Yeah, I mean, this is very special. I reckon the solution is, Dr. Hanan, with a little bit of nuance. All right. The solution is Megan can invite the gran and Carol, but she's got to pay for all of them.
There you go. What a wise man. What a wise man.
It all comes down to the
love it.
If you're paying, then you have not only do you have the right to ask either gran or mum to help out with the kids, but you can also have what you want, which is clearly this scenario, Carol. So I mean, Megan. So go for it.
There is one catch. There's one catch. If she pays for everything, then I'm beholden. I have to do it. I have to look after the kids when she says that.
Yes.
No one's dragging you, kicking and screaming.
No, she'll be reasonable.
Yeah.
She'll be reasonable. We'll
be reasonable. Excuse me, how difficult is it going to be to look after the kids in Mauritius? I mean,
exactly. Look, when I'm there, I'm drunk half the time. So
you're allowed.
Take care of.
There we go.
They don't need any. They just do their thing.
Well, the other half, then I can do my thing.
Lots of people joining the Free Carol hashtag here. Free Carol. Megan's tyranny must end. All right. You three have been very helpful. I love that there's this family with so much love and the ability to make these decisions. You know what, Carol, Professor David Block will organize another trip. You can go on the next one.
Yeah.
Plus, think how much you're going to save. Your Mauritius trip's going to be paid for now. You can save that money for the Northern Lights.
Sure, bloody will pay for my Northern Lights then.
Okay, now don't get greedy, Carol. All right, thank you, ladies. I love that this is an issue because it's not that big an issue. Obviously, it's just a fun thing, and it is a demonstration, though, Dr. Hanan, of how we can get unstuck, right, and how there is a compromise. There's always a compromise that works.
Absolutely. Win-win for everybody. Absolutely.
Damn right. Okay. Thank you very much, ladies. Good luck, and let us know what happens. Let us know what happens here. I'm hoping, Dr. Hanan, they actually input your plan here and that they follow your advice.
But that's the rule. Didn't they sign something?
We didn't get them to sign anything. Is that what you want me to do from now on? We got to get them to sign things?
Yeah, they have to commit to it. If they're going to be on the show, they have to commit to following the verdict, 100%.
Wow. Okay. And parallel parking, hashtag Megan pay all. Okay. All right. There we go.
I liked all the twists in the plot there. There were the biggest twist of all was the grand, not the grand. What's it called?
Great grandmother. Yeah.
That was the biggest twist. That changed everything.
Well, Doc, go ahead, Siv.
So interestingly enough, I spoke about this earlier. Seeing people interacting with their mothers. In the greater scheme of things, it all means fuck all. As long as she still has her mother and she can still call her mother to tell her mother that she loves her. For me, it's just invaluable. Like for me, they can see that the whole thing, the greater scheme of things. It always reminds me of that Linkin Park song. In the end, it doesn't even matter. But the beauty of that relationship makes me so jealous, so flipping unbelievably jealous. But it's beautiful. Like for me, I think that was just beautiful. My mother was a principal for 33 years. So for her, my mother got to that stage as well of going, nah, bruh, I've just given everything to everyone my entire life. I was a teacher. She's like, it's time for my happiness. My mother was just like that after retiring. Exactly. But that mother was a lot more movable than my mother would have been. My mother was like, fuck you, I'm going. Me, going nowhere, So for me, that was so beautiful to watch.
You know, the thing is, we could all feel the connection that both of them had together. It was beautiful. It was pure. It was real love. And that's why I gave the advice that I gave, because there was no conflict. There was really no animosity. There was no resentment. There was no conflict. And the connection between them was very important to the both of them. And like when somebody goes on holiday and they come back and share photos and you half really care because you don't care about somebody else's holiday. But when you're involved in it, you want to watch the photos together and you want to remember the memories together and you want to re-engage and remember what you've done together. And I think this will be a special time for them, especially because they value the relationship and the relationship is so powerful. So to your point, this connection is incredible. I mean, like we all look at it. And even people that have mothers, by the way, not everybody has good relationship with their mothers. And we watch this and we go, oh my gosh, this is really special. This is really, really unique.
All right. Well, Doc, thank you. And we will catch up with you again next Monday.
I look forward to it. Cheers, guys.
All right, there he is. This is Dr. Hanan, everybody. A little bit of therapy for a Monday morning. Yeah?
Gareth, I've got another story to tell you. So my Because a lot of people sometimes ask me what drives me, what keeps me going. And I was interviewing Kevin Hart last week, right?
Wow,
and
nice.
I found him quite underwhelming because he was just very, very tired. You know, when these entertainers are like 50,000 interviews, like they're just pushing kind of thing. And I did an interview with him, but I saw him throughout the whole day at other places. But he would answer the same thing over and over. But then you realize that because you only see them once, you only hear that once, because I saw him over and over. Do an interview with him, and he gives me the same answers over and over throughout the whole day because I'm doing interviews with him. But the last interview I did with him, I was like, I put my mic down and I whispered in his ear. After I asked him, I said, what drives you? And he was like, gives me a generic answer. So I put the mic down as we're saying goodbye, and I hug him, and I said to his ear, she's proud of you. He's like, what? I said, you lost your mother in 2007. And only a man who's driven like you are is trying to make her proud continuously. And I said, I lost my mother 5 months ago, and I can feel that my only mission now is to make her proud. So we had like a bit of a moment, a huggy. It was quite a moment. He was like, thank you so much, whatever kind of a thing. And for me, that's my only drive. My only drive in life was to make my mother happy and to make her proud. And now having to live without her in my life is having to find how to make myself proud for myself. Because for me, success for me is a subconscious feel. I do it subconsciously, but I realized that consciously, I was just doing it to pick up my phone to say to my mom, do you know what I did today? And now it's to learn that.
Do you reckon now that you are actually able to do it for yourself and to make yourself proud and happy?
No.
Still not.
For me, success and achieving is a no-brainer. You know what I mean? It's a no-brainer that I'm going to do well. It's a no-brainer that I will achieve my goals. That's a subconscious feeling. But I do miss that conscious feeling of phoning her and going, 25 SEPTA nominations. And she'll be like, I'm so proud of you, my baby. You just so amazing, my baby. But another thing that she did that I'll never forget, people are always like, oh man, you don't care about anything. And I was like, yeah, I used to care about what she thought. And at her memorial service, conservative crowd, conservative black, like old school kukuletu.
Right.
And the priest said, your mother loved you so much. And I thought to myself, oh no shit. And then he goes, no. Your mother loved you so much in Xhosa that she would share links and videos to your drag videos, to your pole dancing videos in the church WhatsApp group.
Wow. So your mother was basically whoring you out on the WhatsApp group in your ladies' clothing, because you've done drag shows and you've done pole dancing. Are you still doing the pole dancing?
Yeah, I'm still doing the pole dancing. I'm still doing the drag. I'm still doing the heels. It's my obsession.
I heard that you can actually pull yourself up the pole just using your ass cheeks all the way to the top. Is that true?
And my cock. Soft.
Yeah, there we go. He wraps it around the pole, and that helps to give him a bit of grip on the pole. That's what I heard.
It chafes sometimes. Like I actually saw it. I once saw this thing. The guy, men talk about sexual experience, and they go, "I love pulling the girl's panty to the side and putting it in. It feels nice, but then it chafes the side."
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here. I mean, 1 minute we're talking about you losing your dearly beloved mother. The next minute we're talking about chafing cocks on panties.
Wait. One more. I haven't said this on a platform, but I have to show you something.
Uh-oh.
Oh dear. Do I need to cover my eyes?
So I go travel overseas. I use my mother's bag. And as I use my mother's bag, my mother's a 67-year-old woman. In the bag, look what I find.
What, condoms?
Oh my!
Yes.
Oh my word!
Your mother had condoms in her bag. Ooh!
And it looked like it was torn, teeth marks here, and there was supposed to be 3, and there's only 2. Yes, Mom.
That's been opened in a hurry. That's for sure.
That woman was busy.
Mums don't open boxes like that. You've seen how cereal boxes look like in the cupboard.
Yeah, right.
They're perfect, and those tabs are all lined and closed.
That's right.
She did that in a rush. But you know what? So I wanted to say, and just to give you a little bit of context, my mom had a stroke 7 years ago, and she had a 40% chance of survival. She was in a comatose state for a year. And we basically had, in many ways mourned her and accepted a big part of her, the loss of her. And she has made a remarkable recovery. She's blown doctors out of the water. She's again that person that I can phone at the end of the day and, tell her about my day. And that was missing for so long. So I feel like I've come very close to feeling the full loss of my mom, and that's different for everyone. So I'm not saying I experienced the same as you, but I will say that feeling of this, like I remember having the most stupid question. I was packing up my house to move, and my mom had only barely started opening her eyes. And I had so many curtain hooks, and I didn't know what to do with them. And I thought, I would just phone my mom and say, what do I do? And this time I went, I visited her in hospital, and I said to her, Mom, I need to ask you stupid things like what I do with all these curtain hooks. And in her half-wake state, she said, keep them, you'll always use them. And recently I told her the story about that. And I said to her, and I asked you the most stupid question, and you answered me. She said, I hope I said you must keep them because you'll always use them.
Oh, wow.
And we laughed over our glass of wine. Now, I know I'm going to have to go through that again with my mom. I'm going to have to go through the actual loss of her. And I understand the different phases that you're at, where it's like, that person still got their mom. What have they got to worry about? Or, that person will never understand, or they haven't grown spiritually. But yeah, I think I fully, a lot of what you've said resonates with me. And just a reminder to myself, really, from your story, is that some of us still have to go through that. And so, thank you for showing us that it's not. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be fine about it. It is hard.
I miss myself. I really miss myself. Like I miss the person I was then. Like 11th of August, 2022. I feel like I was a better person. Like I really do. Like I've opened a folder with all her pictures, and every time I feel something, I go into the folder. I go into the darkness. I heard a story yesterday that says cows and like the cows in the wild, what they called, whatever they called, in the wild, those big cows, whatever, buffaloes. When
those cows.
When there's a storm approaching, they can sense it. Cows run away from the storm, but buffaloes run into the storm. They go towards the storm. Now the cows get tired, but the storm follows them, and they're always in the shit. But the buffaloes go into it, and they might get into shit for a little bit, but then they go into the middle of the storm and it's fine. But it goes by faster. And for me, I've been living in the pain, going into the albums, looking at pictures of my mother, listening to voice notes, reading messages, cry. I've been doing that over and over, and I felt like this actually has helped because I've gone into the storm.
I love that analogy. Oh, it's I don't know. I don't know if it's true that cows. I don't know if that is true. It's perfect. It's just the most brilliant analogy. But I mean, you could be making this up, and I'd still think it was beautiful.
No, but remember, what they're saying is that they do go away from it. Obviously, they don't have enough time to run, whatever. But what happens is they do run away from it, and buffaloes go towards it.
Amazing.
I heard that the other day from a guy. Listen, Cliff, what's your view? Quickly, what's your view on Tate?
Okay, wait. We got to get into this. I want us to talk about this properly. We'll go into it just after 7. Stick around. This is a good question because we got to talk about that. It's something that people are always asking, not just of me. Is this guy the worst form of a man that has ever lived, or is he a guy who keeps hitting on some truths that make a lot of people very uncomfortable? And the whole thing around his arrest. This is a very interesting discussion, so we're going to get into it. That's coming up next. CliffCentral.com. It is.
I have some views.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. We got some interesting stuff coming up. Don't go anywhere. Okay, good morning. It is Monday. We had to take a break between 7 and just after because we have to start the next podcast. So that's why we played you that horrible elevator music for a whole 3 minutes. Oh my god! I was sitting here looking at Leigh-Ann and we're like, why are we even doing this? It's like the commercials in there. It's just noise. All right, so Siv Ngesi dropped a little bit of a bombshell before we went to the break. And he said he wants to talk about something that's been on his mind, obviously, quite a lot, and something people are asking me about as well. Andrew Tate is this. He's very famous. He's a huge thing on social media, on YouTube. He was massively popular. He's this alpha male who he's had an incredible life. I think he's also been a champions fighter. He's a guy who seems to lead a lot of conversations around what men are meant to do in society, where men fit in. He says some very controversial things that don't always float terribly well with, particularly with women, with feminists, and with men who think that that there's something really, really awful about guys who kind of fit traditional gender roles. And I'm curious about this coming from you, Siv, because in many ways, you break stereotypes. You talked just now about your drag shows that you do and all that kind of thing. Now, Andrew Tate would probably not look terribly fondly on that stuff. He was arrested recently in Romania after he made a couple of comments about someone like Greta Thunberg and a bunch of other people. And I believe he's still in jail. I'm not sure what he's being held for. Apparently, there were some girls. He used to run basically a webcam service, and he always has plenty of women around. He tends to objectify them. I'm giving a huge amount of generous.
That's very mild.
Yeah. I'm being very conservative with the story. But what's your take on this guy, and what did I leave out in my basic introduction for people who don't know who Andrew Tate is?
I just want to say before I say anything,
yeah,
if you are going to cut this thing up, dear people, and you're going to listen to this interview, make sure you listen to everything I say. Do not cut pieces out and only post pieces onto the internet. Because what I'm about to say, if cutting and sharing, then you're going to misquote me. Just quote the whole conversation from when I say, what do you think of Andrew Tate, to my last comment.
Okay.
So here it is. Let's ask ourselves a question: how a man like him became so famous and how so popular in such a short time possible. Why now did a guy like Andrew Tate become so popular? And here's my theory. Take it or leave it. So currently the world is continuously talking about women's rights, GBV, hashtag Me Too, all these things that are happening. So it's quite out there, women's rights, everything that's happening. But what I do think that has happened in society is that I do think the boy child and the boy child has been forgotten in the conversation. Because if we are talking about the problems that are happening to women, we can't have the same conversation without mentioning what we're going to do to fix the boy and the effort that we need to put into the boy. And I think that's a very important conversation that we need to have. If you know that someone is part of the cause of the problem, how can you not spend time helping fix this particular problem? Cool.
Yeah.
So then what's happening in the world is that everyone's talking to predominantly just the girl, right? Talking at the guy, screaming at the guy and talking at the guy, but being very supportive of the girl. So what has happened? You have an entire half of the population who feels like they're not being listened to or not having anyone saying anything that's vaguely to them. So what happens when an alpha male starts acting like he's talking for the boy child or the man? Obviously, they're going to look and go, hey, wait a minute. He's team us. And then he's
filling a gap.
So he's filled a gap that has been left in society. Now, a lot of women are going to go, no, you're blaming the victim. No, I'm not blaming the victim. I am not blaming the victim. All I am saying is that in the conversations, because I'm always part of these panels.
Can I just say here, also, it's not so easy to just say victim and an abuser. Sometimes things are a little more gray than they are just black and white. And because, let's for example, I just want to throw this in there because it's something that I was reading a very interesting book about just the other day. The entire school system is actually really geared to girls, not to boys. Sitting there paying attention in class, communication skills, the priority these days being put on kind of how you feel as opposed to playing sport outside on the field. Girls in general are better at that sort of environment than guys. There's no doubt. Guys will always get into trouble more because they can't sit still. They can't listen for long. They hate talking about their feelings. Boys in general do not respond very well to the modern education system. It's not designed for them. It's designed for girls, which is why at the moment in countries like America, I think it's 66%, 2/3 of the people who are going to universities are girls. Boys are just dropping out of education, left, right, and center, because it's not actually built for them.
No, I was lucky in school that I was a drama kid and I was a sporting kid, right? And then I was an average student. So teachers made sure I did well because I was the first team water polo captain, first team rugby captain. I was a debating team captain. I did all these things.
No, let's be fair. The biggest part of it was like they'd never ever seen a black guy who could play water polo, and they were like, "We cannot afford to lose."
Yes, Yeah. So that's what happened as well. But sometimes you listen to the Andrew Tate stuff, and you get stuck in a worm. Like you get stuck watching some of his content. Some of the times he's speaking a lot of bold, misogynistic, absolute nonsense that should be said in the 1980s, 1920s. And then sometimes he says things and you're like, ooh. But it's all laced with like misogyny. So sometimes he will say something that's great, and then he'll start off by going, these bitches, and then you'll end up with these hoes. And you're like, the stuff that was good that you were saying, now we can't share it or support it. But my friend who has kids says her 10-year-olds in a high school, a very good private school, he is their leader. They think he is a role model. And you go, why? And I go back to no one is talking to them. No one is saying anything to them. It's men are trash, toxic masculinity. And I just want to add, masculinity and toxic masculinity are not the same thing. I just want to add that the problem is not masculinity. The problem is toxic masculinity. The world needs masculinity. Masculinity is a beautiful thing in the right hands. So let's not fucking thingy the two, right? So for me, if you're a young boy, I'm an adult. So when someone says men are trash, I can decipher what they're talking about. I can decipher what they're saying. You know what I mean? Best analogy I've got about men are trash is if you're a woman and you get thrown into a tank of 100 sharks, and only the bull shark and the great white shark have the potential of biting you, and the rest, 95% of those fucking sharks can't bite you, you're not going to jump into the fucking aquarium and go, there's 100 sharks. Only 5% could kill me. Nah, bruh, you treat every fucking shark like they can kill you. Every one of those sharks is the enemy. Man, hashtag men are trash. That's my best analogy of it, right?
Well, there's also this idea, and you used the term victim earlier, that you know, in every situation, the woman has got to be a victim, and that she is that there's something holy and good and pure about all feminine behavior, and that there's this evil badge on all masculine behavior. And I mean, that's again oversimplification, right? It's the same as saying, for example, that you know, all black people in America deserve reparations paid because of slavery. And it was interesting. There's a woman called Angela Davis, who's like a famous black rights activist and civil rights activist. She's also a very much left of center communist. And she found out in a TV show about her ancestry this week that she's actually descended from a pilgrim on the Mayflower, and that one of her great grandparents was also a slave owner. And it makes it clear to me that nothing is that obvious. This woman, who's been for her entire life convinced that she was on a certain side of the story, has just found out that actually it's a little bit more complicated. And the same thing happens with masculinity and femininity too. One is not superior or inferior to the other. We need both.
Yeah, that's something that I've always stuck by.
I was gonna ask you to talk. I was gonna say we need the lady to talk, or else when this gets cut up, they're gonna go, there are two men talking, and the woman said nothing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Bring in some inclusivity and diversity into the conversation. All right, go for it, Leigh-Ann. What did you want to say? We've only got you here because you're a woman, obviously. It's not that you say anything useful the rest of the time.
I've never been a feminist. I've never been. I've gone through my phases. I mean, as I am a victim of gender-based violence, I went through some serious physical abuse that ended up with me in hospital for 3 weeks. So I do have that as a background. I do have that as a reference. And during those times, for sure, I was suffering from PTSD. I was feeling very jaded. I was scared of any man who came near me or who walked past me or drove next to me. So I have been through those phases. But I remember my stance before that happened. And I was asked about women's rights. And, I said, women have fought for so long. We truly don't realize how good we have it now. And so many women came for me and said, no, we don't have it good. We need to continue fighting. I've also been really lucky to have a dad and brother who I absolutely idolize in terms of the way they are as men. There's so many times that I watch these feminist videos on TikTok or whatever, and I feel embarrassed that stuff is being said about men. I would feel really hurt if my dad or brother saw that. And there are times that I've got to check myself as well, where I'll kind of roll my eyes and say, oh, that's just men. And I look at the men sitting around the table and they don't know what to say about it because a lot of them aren't like that. So that's just to give you a background on my stance. I do believe that a lot of men must feel completely voiceless in all of this. And I'm not happy to see women coming on and bashing men because it's almost like saying, let's fix apartheid with anti-apartheid, or there's no direct reversal here. You know, it's not like, okay, women were oppressed for so long and men called us my hoe and my bitch. It doesn't mean now that we can do the same to men. It's just setting a really shitty example. However, I think that there is definitely a gap in the market, if you want to call it that, for a role model to come in and to get people to start thinking about these things again. But he is the Kanye West of Andrew Tate I'm talking about, is the Kanye West of that role model. He's off the cliff. He has serious mental issues. He openly advocates violence against women. So I have a big problem with that. Sure, he may have started the conversation, but to hear that he's a role model to, you know, high school kids,
10-year-olds, primary
makes me feel ill, because then everything that we are working towards is for shit.
So, you know, for me, the conversation about what you're saying about your father and your brother is, for me, I think a lot of people think about this issue of masculinity and toxic masculinity. They think of it just at the end of the problem. Now, the end of the problem, we're talking about GBV, we're talking about rape there. But that at the top there, it's too late. It's way too late up there. We're talking about small things. We're talking about where it starts. We're talking about like calling women names, rape jokes, these kind of things. The smaller things that people don't realize lead to the big things. Now, a person like your dad or your father, they can relate in that sense. The smaller things that we can fix, you know what I mean? And I think people sometimes think of everything of the extreme. That's when men go, that's not me. I'm not involved there. But when it comes to misogyny, bro, I have misogynistic thoughts or actions that I have to call myself out daily. And I don't think the everyday man realizes how that is part of the problem of toxic masculinity. So I think a lot of us like to go, oh my goodness, I would never do such a thing. Some men are terrible, but none of us are going, you know, in my WhatsApp group, some guys share things, and sometimes we do say something, sometimes we don't say things, or you know what I mean? So I think the issue is, for example, I spoke about racism last week. Most white South Africans would be like, I'm not racist. But when a family member says the K word at the dinner table, they'll be like, no, Karen eating. I'm like, but you might say something. Or they have these undertones that corruption is a black thing. And you're like, but you're not racist. You know what I mean? So I think it's just multifaceted and multi-layered that we all only want to talk about when someone says the K word, but not the little things of, you know, the undertones of racism.
All right. So you asked me what I think. I don't spend a lot of time paying attention to Andrew Tate. I've seen some of his stuff because, again, you know, these things get passed around. It's always interesting to me that we can't accept that even the worst people sometimes say things that are true. So taking into consideration everything that Leigh-Ann just said and everything that you've said, I don't think I would have a problem with anything that Andrew Tate has said if it's true. If it's untrue and it's just misogyny and it's just said for effect, well, then, you know, you take it from whence it comes. But the fact that this reminds me always of like people who used to say to me, you can't listen to Michael Jackson's music because he's a pedophile. I'm like, I will listen to Michael Jackson's music if I like, because I'm only interested in his music. I'm not involved in Michael Jackson's
But he wasn't
life.
singing about feeling kids.
Well, also, but I told you once jokingly that if I had a kid, I would send it to Michael Jackson just if he'd write another fucking Billie Jean, right? And I was kidding, but to me, the two are not the same thing. I don't have a problem with. Wait, just hold on, don't get distracted. So I don't care that Andrew Tate is a terrible person to the women in his life. I mean, if they've chosen to be with him, then first of all, there's a part of them that's making a very poor decision there, and that requires a whole lot of Dr. Hanan and everything else. And if he is that kind of a person in private or in public, well, that's shitty. And I wouldn't want to have him as a friend. He wouldn't be one of the people in my circle. But for me to sit here, I have no relationship with this guy at all and say, Andrew Tate, you're such a misogynist, does nothing. It's me virtue signaling and trying to sound like I'm a better person than Andrew Tate. And for all I know, I might not be. I hope I am. I hope I'm a better person than him. But who the hell cares about my opinion of him? If he's saying things that are true and they are landing in an audience of people who are sick of being bullshitted, then I totally understand why he's as famous as he is.
Yeah, but you can say that, Gareth. You can say that because you're an intelligent man. Let's talk to the 10-year-old, the 9-year-old, the 13, the 14-year-old. There's the problem, Chums, because currently you're saying it with a man who is intelligent and can decipher information. But if you're talking to a 10-year-old, and I say 10-year-old because the kids
I'm not a parent, and it's not my kid.
Yeah.
Again, what's it got to do with me?
Okay, but wait, but you can agree that a 15-year-old boy pummeling and beating a teacher in an American school is wrong, right? You can agree with that. But I bet you he listens to Andrew Tate. I bet you he listens to Andrew Tate, and it's part of the problem.
So again, yes, but the only reason we've got to this point, and you and Leigh-Ann have both said this, and I think it's such an important, valuable observation, is that we've got to this point because the pendulum has swung so far in the opposite direction that now young men are only hearing bullshit. They're only hearing, you are a toxic male. You grew up with X, Y, and Z. Any use of your physical abilities is violence. Words are violence.
That's brainwashing in itself.
Exactly. And now the kids are being brainwashed by someone from the opposite side, Andrew Tate. And they're watching these videos because they're sick of hearing like their teachers stand up and tell them about diversity and inclusion and toxic masculinity and privilege. And what they're hearing from him is like, oh, wait, what he's saying sounds more true than what they're telling me. Therefore, I'm going to swing in the opposite direction.
And I just want to go in and go, first of all, I know you guys are listening to this, to those who are listening, and I know it's going to be podcasted. I just want to say, listen to the comments again that we've just said before you cut and paste and misquote.
Yeah.
And I know I can back up everything I've said on here.
So
and
I can promise you, like, dude, if someone is going to do that anyway, I'm used to it, and you should be okay with it by now as well. I mean, I've heard you say some absolutely true and brilliant things about, for example, the ANC. Next thing I know, Siv Ngesi is like he's working for the DA. He's an EFF member. I mean, it's all bullshit, right? I mean, someone's gonna misquote you at some point, and I don't actually care anymore. Go ahead.
I don't mind.
Misquote me, you losers.
But what I do want to say and add to this is that no matter what we say, we know we have a problem. We have a problem with toxic masculinity. We need kids to have better leaders. We need young boys to hear different things. We need boys to have positive reinforcement. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. But we do have a problem. We do have a problem, especially in this fucking country. We're a violent. You know something? Here's another quote. We do not have a GBV issue in this country. I repeat, we don't have a GBV violence. We don't have a gender-based violence problem. We have a violence problem in this country that's not been addressed. But GBV sells papers and gets headlines. But
and Siv, here's the other ugly thing no one wants to say, and this is something I keep bringing up, and it falls on deaf ears because it's not convenient. There are no there are, but there are very few random men just walking around looking to exact violence on women. Most of this gender-based violence occurs between people who know each other. All right, this is something no one wants to talk about. Most of the ugly, it's way worse. But these people know it's not some guy who's walking past and goes, think I'll just break into that house and rape people. There are people that do that, don't get me wrong. But most of this stuff is happening inside of families. It's people who are meant to love each other that are so fucked up that they're the ones who are perpetuating this violence upon each other. And that is unacceptable and outrageous. And we have a problem, not just with violence, as you put it. We have a problem with understanding what families are meant to be. We have a mental health crisis. We have people who are so saturated in ugliness and violence and cruelty to each other that they can't even treat the people they're supposed to love decently, let alone strangers.
So you're going. So look, before let's get this right. So GBV, gender-based violence inside the house, like women being beaten and hurt, definitely is a what's it called, done by people that they know.
Yeah.
But there's definitely all flipping serial rapists and random people who are raping random people. But I kind of think. But so for me, you know what? And I let me just word this quickly in a way that I have to say. I'm nowhere close to perfect at all. I continuously have misogynistic thoughts every fucking day. It's a continuous having to remind myself that you can do better, you know better, and being accountable and surround myself with people who hold me accountable continuously every single day of my life. And for me, there is no such thing as a perfect man or a perfect human, but we need to hold men accountable, and men need to hold themselves accountable in society. And currently, I don't feel enough of us are being held accountable by society and continuously perpetuating such bullshit continuously. So for me, we're not making excuses for men. We need to be better. We need to do better. But I do remember when I was a kid, I remember having fucking incredible role models, incredible men to look up to, unbelievable role models that even my mother used to speak about. Like if you see there, I have Muhammad Ali and Nelson Mandela there. And these are men that are always behind me, backing me continuously. But I do feel like I would hate to be a young boy currently. Because if you tell me now, name 5 men who are perfect role, great models for young boys.
No,
now,
it's very difficult.
Tell me now, 5. But I could name 5 women in a heartbeat.
But here we go. I mean, this is what I think we're completing a lot of circles this morning, because again, we tend to judge people in the past very harshly, and we think we're better than them. You know, to go back to the cow being slaughtered for your father, which you talked about in the first hour. We now, Nelson Mandela's not good enough. You know, there are all these people calling him a sellout. Now there are people saying, Muhammad Ali, you know, because of his religious stance, or because he didn't join the military, he wasn't no one is perfect. Who are these people who think that they're so perfect? Whether they are activists on the male side or activists on the female side, or political activists or black or white activists. And we go back to all these things we've spoken about now, which seems like there's a coherent discussion happening here, by the way, which I mean, none of us planned, but that it
feels like we've done some good work this morning.
I feel like we're covering a lot of ground, frankly. But I mean, this is what happens when you get Siv on the show as well. He does bring some value. Listen, dude, we've got to realize, like, there is no such thing as a perfect anybody. All the people who pretend to be haven't read enough books and haven't studied history and haven't looked at the world around them. There is lots of improvement to be made. There's plenty that we don't know about each other. And there's a huge amount of people jumping to conclusions and putting people in boxes, which is hugely, hugely stupid.
So do you know why I started drag and why I started pole dancing? People ask me those all the time. During COVID, GBV's numbers increased tremendously. And I remember sitting in my house alone, feeling disgusted to be a man. I remember thinking, I was just like, what if I was just like,
hold on. Can I ask you about that? Because that is to me, that's so weird. Like, I don't feel responsible. I just want to know, because we've got a difference of opinion here, which I think I want to figure out why.
But listen, listen, guys. There was a moment of me just consuming so much information. My DMs are full of women going, I'm being beaten by my husband every day during COVID. Young girls going, I'm being raped. In my DMs.
Why are they messaging you with that?
Continuously. Because I think a lot of the times women online just want to be heard and just say, I believe you. And sometimes that's such a small thing. And we don't realize how important it is. So when I say I was being disgusted, I meant I love being a man, right? But there was a bit of a guilt. There was a bit of a guilt, and I have to be honest about it. And I made a mission to go do very predominantly feminine things that are very difficult. I did drag, I did pole dancing, I went out, I did ballet, I did a lot of things.
You were role playing.
Netball, I did a lot of things. And the things, and the things that really, really stuck to me was pole dancing and drag.
Don't lie, you like the feeling. You like the feeling on your balls. Dancing, that's all.
But let me tell you something. Pole dancing is physically the most difficult thing I've ever done, right? And for me, we talk about the guilt of masculinity, bruh. I don't feel like I did anything to someone, but I do feel sometimes as a man going, flip, I need to do more.
Okay, I get you, but like this is also there's I know it comes from a good place with you, so I'm not going to try and like undermine your character here or whatever, but I don't mind. I don't understand why anyone on earth should feel guilty for something they didn't themselves do that is happening to someone else. That is,
compassion.
First of all, no. Empathy. Hold on. Because it's gone beyond that for some people. Like I do not have a responsibility to feel bad about other men's behavior when I'm not committing that behavior myself.
Wait, Gareth.
I don't.
Relax.
I don't.
Wait, Gareth. Are you trying to tell me that you have not played a part in any form of misogyny in your life, even on this radio? You've never.
I probably have, but I know for a fact. No. We've all had thoughts. You mentioned it yourself too. Okay.
Yes.
But when you behave badly, when Siv Ngesi behaves badly with a woman, I'm not responsible for that. No matter what I've said on my show.
No, wait, now you're simplifying it. Now you're simplifying it. So I at no point when I talk about guilt, I'm not.
You talked about hold on. You talked about accountability earlier.
Okay, accountability. So
accountability means you are responsible for the way you behave. I can't be responsible for what's going on in your head, and you won't be judged for what's happening in your head.
Okay, so I do not say that I am responsible for anything any other man has done. Yes, cool, right? But I do feel that I am part of that I can be part of the solution of fixing things. So this platform that you have, if there's a little boy out there, one little boy listening to us, one little boy, one. Now that sounds like airy-fairy bullshit, but one little boy listens to us and goes, actually, Siv plays rugby? What? He pole dances too? What? Oh, Gareth is cool as well. And they go, actually, I can be a better man. Do you not think that's even one boy changing? You don't think?
You may put yourself on the pedestal of being someone's role model, and you do that then at your own peril, because I am not responsible for your children. I didn't bring them into this world. I'm not responsible to educate them. All this is a show that informs and entertains, and I'm not going to be dragged into or put on a pedestal to be the guy on any particular subject. Now, that's not me obfuscating, and it's not me trying to eschew any sort of responsibility. But what it is I know in my own life what I have done right and what I have done wrong. I am responsible for the results of that. So if I drive too fast, I get locked up. If I hit someone, I'll go to jail. I mean, we were talking about this just earlier. You might have beaten up some homeless dude for throwing a brick at a car. In your world, in your mind, you needed to execute justice there because there isn't a justice system. Now, I'm upset, don't get me wrong, that we live in a country where the justice system doesn't work, where there are so many women who are victimized on a daily basis. It upsets me, and it makes me very uncomfortable. And I think about my own mother and sister, and I think about Leigh-Ann, and I think about other women who I know, and I think I hope that never happens to them. But I'm not the one doing that. And I think you've got to be careful. You've got to draw the line somewhere, because ultimately, Siv, you will exhaust yourself mentally, and you will have compassion. You'll have compassion fatigue, which is, I think, what you're going through some of the time. I watch you on social media, and I'm an amateur psychologist here, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But I sometimes see you burnt out. I see, because you put videos up. You're very honest. You're very out there. You're very open. I see you burnt out sometimes. And I think you're burnt out because you're taking responsibility for shit that is not yours. I'm not responsible for the way other men behave. Neither are you. Leigh-Ann is not responsible for all the women in the world.
Agree.
Do you have something to say to this? You're watching these two apes, me and Siv, arguing with each other.
Absolutely. It's so true. What people have often said to me, don't, especially in the crazy days when we were on 5FM, and you used to say really off the rail things, and people would say, how do you feel about that? And I'm like, he's not advocating to be a role model for anyone. This is entertainment, and hats off to you. So if you do that, but not everyone's going to do the same, and not everyone's going to feel the same responsibility. I do not feel responsible for how women think. I'm very happy that they're entertained by my life stories and realize that they're not as abnormal as they think. But that's where I draw the line.
Yeah, guys, Gareth, I agree with you. I agree with you both 150%. I really, really do. I can tell you one thing. One of my strengths and one of my weaknesses is that I'm a sucker for humans. I fucking love people in the sense of the underdog. I really love the underdog, and I really love fighting for the underdog. Me going there and hitting the homeless guy is illegal. Categorically illegal. And I will still do it, right? But there's something about me that hears stories and feels that I wish I was there to do something, right? I wish I was there to do something, even though it wasn't my doing, right? And you agree with that one, that beating up the beggar, right? But technically, that's what I'm doing with women who reach out to me as well. Technically, I'm somewhat going, let's fuck him up, let's fucking.
But you can't. But again, dude, it's almost like you're overcompensating and you're trying to be everything to everybody, and you can't. I mean, there are there's probably a terrible, horrific car accident in like outer Mongolia that just happened this morning, and just the worst. No, and maybe these people were all decapitated, and they're lying there in the Gobi Desert with their fucking arms and their heads and their balls in different places, and it's an absolute catastrophe. And for me to pretend that on this show in this morning, I'm going to be all somber about it, and we're going to have a moment of silence for the people in the Ulaanbaatar, bus crash, is just, it's not even, first of all, it's not real. I can't pretend. I've just made up this story. It's impossible for me to pretend that I'm compassionate about things I don't even know about. There's a limit. There's this thing called Dunbar's number.
No.
Dunbar's number, it's somewhere around 240, 250. It's the maximum number of people you can actually have a meaningful relationship with at any stage in your life.
It's the number of fucks that you will be able to give.
It's the number of fucks you can give. So it's what it starts to do, if you care about more people than that, or you pretend to care about more people than that, it actually makes people question your sincerity. They're like, well, if he's upset about every single thing that's happening, what does he actually care about? Because suddenly, his total amount of upset is reduced to like, oh, well, he gets upset about everything, so he's just an overreactor. And I think that this is a thing, like you said, you care about humanity, and I get that about you. I do see that I don't think you're lying, but you can't care about everybody, because then you end up caring about nobody.
No, actually, it's funny you say that. So I get a lot of messages from people, right? And they're always like, this person is, and I'm like, I have a certain group that I really feel for. And it's a lot of the times it's mostly GBV, rape, and kids. That's my those are my things.
Those are good things. Those are good things to care about, by the way. I mean, so who's got a problem with that?
Yeah, but when people share other stuff with me, I'm like, I don't feel nothing. But I have a certain thing that hits my ding. It really does get me. But it's definitely, I was saying the other day, my mother, every Sunday, my mother used to, on her way home from the township, she would always stop at a flipping hospital. And I'd be on the side deathbeds of people I had no idea who they were. My mother used to be crying. I used to be crying. I don't know who these people were. So that's why I grew up. I grew up with my mother meeting random people at hospitals who I have no idea who they were.
Your stories about your mom are beautiful, and she sounds like one of the most compassionate people that ever lived. But I would, if my mother took me to the beds of dying people, I mean, it's a kind of torture, for fuck's sake. What a horrible thing to do to your child.
My mother used to, because my mom was part of the church, so they had to go pray at people.
You took you with?
And now I hate church. I hate everything about religion. I hate religion. I hate it all. But my mother, I think, is going to play a role in that. But one thing you did say that I really liked, back to the thing I talked about during COVID, I really had this weird feeling of trying to understand masculinity, trying to reinvent what masculinity means to me. And then that's how the drag and the pole dancing thing happened. And I'm in a much better space then. But being alone in your house every single day, alone, and you receiving information definitely did something to me. But I'm glad it was a process of getting to where I am now. And I think I've definitely been able to process it better.
Thank God there are people like you who still want to get up and go and like smash a homeless person in the face for throwing a brick at someone's car. I mean, especially if it's a young defenseless woman. I'm totally with you on that one. I think the difference is that I actually, I don't just love humans. I think they've got to prove that they deserve the love. And what Yeah, what I've started to realize is that like there are plenty of really shitty people in the world. And this is also why I don't particularly think about or care about the Andrew Tate or anybody else like that. It's not in my mind every day. I'm trying my best, and again, if he does enter my mind, I look at what he said. I go, is this true? Does it have some value? If it isn't, dismiss it. I'm not thinking about him as my role model. And if he's kids' role models, then that's the parents' fault because they haven't been the role models. So I'm also going to say again, and I'm hard on parents on this show, this, Leigh-Ann, if you're going to be a parent that is a full-time, lifelong occupation, it's the hardest job of all. Said it before, parents deserve an enormous amount of credit if they get it right. And it's not a thing where there's a manual. So every parent does some things right and some things wrong. But if you're letting your kid be modeled by someone like Andrew Tate, you're doing a bad job as a parent. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, we understand. But let's be honest, as much as parents raise their kids, society does a lot of raising too, my chums. But I understand what you're saying. But society does play a second parent quite well as well.
Listen, I love seeing you, and thank you for being on the show this morning. And I'm very glad that we got to connect again. You always have so much to say, and I can't even remember what it was that you and I were going to talk about this morning. It wasn't any of the things we've discussed, but it doesn't matter because these were all better.
I just want to say, I want to end up by saying, for me, I do feel we're on an interesting journey as a country, and I definitely feel like something needs to be done ASAP, or else we're gonna be fucking hole.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you want to do? What do you want people to do? Go on. Here's your parting shot. This is Siv Ngesi's instruction to everybody. This is what we need to do to get everything right in this country.
Accountability.
Beautiful.
ANC must fuck off, but accountability is needed. And everything we've spoken about goes down to accountability. Come on.
Yeah.
These pieces of shit, these useless fucking trash, corrupt fuckers. Absolute bullshit. Like I was at the Formula E the other day, and Eskom was one of the sponsors of electric cars. I was like, how arrogant can you fucking be, you bastards?
And they were selling solar paneling.
Yes, I agree. All right.
And I know you're going to disagree with me on this. Enough about this. In New York, you see a cop on every corner. I know you're going to be like a banana state, whatever. But if you have a cop and 100 meters another cop, for those 100 meters, you will be accountable. Like you'll be accountable. We need to do something fast, show me. We're going to pay the price. Yeah. Hey, we're going to pay the price.
I'm saying it starts with each of us. Be responsible, at least for yourself. And then once you've got that more or less under control, then start telling the other people in society to behave as well. But, if we've got people, the fish rots from the head, right? So if we've got people at the top who are rotten and who don't know what they're doing, then it's not going to get that much easier down the chain. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Siv. Love seeing you, dude. And keep well. Have an awesome week. I appreciate you being up early on a Monday morning to be on the show with us. Thank you.
I could have been scratching my balls or jerking off.
I know. Yeah, maybe you made the wrong choice. Accountability. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow. He'd rather be scratching his balls than talking to us. I mean, who can blame him?
I don't know. It sounds like he let off a lot of steam this morning, regardless.
I reckon that room smells sweaty as hell now after all the steam he's been letting off. He basically got a cardio workout just being on the show. But what I love about him, right, is he can, in one show, access his really deep personal grief over his mom dying just a few months ago. And he can get hugely upset and pissed off with politicians. And it's all like a bit of stream of consciousness, but you got to love the guy because he's just real, and he sometimes, like he and I will argue occasionally on messages, but most of the time we're just like, hey, how you doing, dude? Love this, love that. And I do prefer passion to people who are just like limp, dead, dull. I saw a woman in the shop yesterday. Oh my God.
You always see these people in shops that are like your terror.
But you see, it's because I don't really, I'm not meeting that many new people on a weekly basis. I mean, I met some amazing people in the last year, but normally when you go into the shop, you also are observing people. This woman went in at the same time I did, so I kind of followed her through the shop.
Or she followed me, right? There's always that one. Yeah.
She did not smile once. She looked like she just was having the worst, and she maybe was having the worst time. Who knows? But it was like this numb, dead face. There was no expression on her face at all. And it made me conscious that I was going to smile. I smiled the whole way through that shop. I had the best shopping experience I've ever had in my life. Everyone walked past me like, what does he know? What has he got that we don't have? I suddenly realized how easy it is to just smile and to change everything around you. I got to the cashier after her, this woman who was the face like a smacked ass, got to the same cashier as her. I said to the cashier, you see that woman's face? She looks at me, she goes, what do you mean? So I said, I'm very unhappy. She goes, yeah, but maybe she hasn't got money. Maybe she's got horrible children. Maybe there's something else going on. She and I laughed about it. But I spoke to her a little bit. I said, what time do you finish today? What time did you start? How much time do you get off? Because she's been like, it was busy, the shops. She goes, no, it's been a busy day, end of the month. Everyone's ringing up at the same time and she's had to work long hours. And again, you have a positive, happy, friendly interaction with someone, smiling, laughing, changes everything.
If you can do it, then do. But for that day, you needed to be the person that smiled. She couldn't that day. She couldn't. She didn't have it in her. I sat the once outside a shop and I was waiting for a bank transaction to go through. So I was just sitting, staring at my phone and watching people walk past. The amount of sad menopausal women I saw coming out of the shop. And for that day, I was able to smile for them. And another day, they'll smile for me.
Yeah. Okay. That's a way of looking at it. Today's your day.
Yeah.
All right. But smile today. So whether you're a new trader who is looking for a safe place to start or an experienced trader who's looking for low spreads, that's you, Leigh-Ann. Multi-assets, high tech. You like hedging. You like shorting certain stocks. That's your thing, right?
Yes.
So then you will find, as will I, the novice, markets.com suits you perfectly.
That's where I go.
Special offer this morning. As per every time we do Markets Mondays, you could follow the link on cliffcentral.com to register with markets.com and you will get a 30% bonus on your deposit. That's very nice.
Bonus.
Who's giving you a bonus at this time of the year?
Bonus.
No one.
A long time ago.
So stocks and indices have done really well kicking off 2023 with reports and updates from big tech, mining companies, financial services, and retailers, to name just a few. There have been a few big winners this year already. As earnings season closes, Dylan Bester is here to join us and to unpack the top performers from Q1 and what traders should look out for in the market moving forward. Hey, Dylan, nice to have you here, man. In person, he's here, sitting among us there. Yeah, good to have you here. Well, I mean, why join us online when you can actually be in the studio with us? Have you been offered some coffee or something?
Yeah.
You have? Okay. Just pull that microphone a bit closer. There we go. All right. So tell us about Q1. Call it earnings season. For some people, they've had a pretty good start to the year, believe it or not. Most people are like January. But it hasn't been all that bad on the markets.
No, it certainly hasn't. I mean, overall, I mean, Q1 basically sums up 2022. So it brings 2022 to a close, and we have sort of an update from all the big companies. We specifically focus on the US because they're generally quite nice and up to date. So they report quarterly. So you can actually see the transaction, how the economy is faring in a real-time basis. We struggle with that in South Africa because it's only yearly. So coming to a close, we've had basically lower earnings across the board. Analysts generally estimate these earnings lower, but a lot of the companies came in line. There's a few companies that have managed to surprise. These are generally your few techs. I'm not going to mention any names because there's about 4,000 companies that report over in the US.
But did you see that so Bing, which is the Microsoft search engine,
AI,
and then Google's one, what's it called, Bard or something. These two were basically vying for attention, and the stock price on one went up hugely. I think it was Microsoft, and on Google it dropped. I mean, they wiped off like billions of dollars because of the bad performance of the search engine as compared with Microsoft. Yeah. It can happen in a minute, let alone quarters or annually.
Well, exactly. I mean, you got this amazing new sort of hype word is your AI chat bots. So, I mean, it's changed everything, and it technically is going to take over Google from a sort of search engine perspective. So that was also a threat to Google at that point. And then obviously the different comments and how people have analyzed this AI is sort of your new buzzword in the market. So that's one of your favorite.
You reckon AI will be able to do investments for us? People are already using it for that?
Yeah, they definitely are. I think the questions you ask and actually what you put across to it is what's actually the quality of your answer going to be.
Okay.
So if you're asking it silly questions, you're going to get a silly answer. And what that AI is actually able to do at the moment, it can pick up the person that's asking it the question and actually tailor a question specifically to you. So it's almost leaning in quite an opposite way now, because they've had engineers develop these things.
Right.
And if you don't have an engineer's brain and you're not developing it, your quality of answer is going to change drastically.
And I suppose it learns from the person who's inputting these questions and answers. Yeah. So in other words, it begins to get smarter, but only about you.
Correct.
And if people are not participating in this process, which is why I think with ChatGPT, for example, they're encouraging as many people to go on and ask things as possible, so it gets better and better at answering them. But we digress. So
but
tech is still a growing.
Look, it's slowed drastically last year. I mean, a lot of
they fired a bunch of people too. They all had to lay off staff.
Laid off 10,000, 20,000 workers. So generally what's happened in the US in the last year is we've had to increase, the US has increased interest rates to fight inflation. So the increase in interest rates obviously slows down the consumer at quite a drastic pace. Right. I mean, they moved the interest rates from 0 to 0.25 to like 4%, over 4.5% now. So, I mean, that's a 4,000% increase. It's just drastic on the consumer. You can't all of a sudden recover from that in a year. So the process we're going through now is we're trying to understand to what effect this interest rate has to go up by to slow down the consumer so that they can actually start normalizing the economy once again. But the economy was running so hot and there was so much money in the system from COVID and the COVID loans that they provide in the States that it was just too much money chasing.
That's why we've got inflation now, right?
Correct. So inflation's hot and they're trying to slow that down. So we had a good January, as you pointed out. The markets moved quite nicely ahead of themselves, up 8% year to date. We've since then, as of last week and Friday, we had new inflation numbers coming out, just pointing to the fact that actually inflation is still peaking its head. So inflation actually surprised again on the upside on Friday, and the markets have come off since then. So looking forward from here, the Federal Reserve, which designs the monetary policy in the States, need to actually try and get the inflation down to 2%. It's currently at 4.5% on this indicator. It's more than half. So it's not going to be happening in a year that this is going to come down and slow down. So this year, we need to try and figure out if the US is going to go into recession.
Okay.
And if we're actually going to not go into recession. And that has two very severe impacts on the overall market. The one scenario, if we don't go into a recession, is the market should do around 12% for the year. Now, take into account we've done 8% already. So the upside for this year is only around 4%. So it's not massive, but you're obviously going to get it in quite a few sectors. and it's going to come in from specific companies. So to sum up earnings season, there's a couple companies that haven't done well. You got your likes of your energy companies that haven't fared well, and they're going to still struggle over the next 2 quarters. So the next quarterly earnings results actually going to be where we can see what's going to happen for the year. So that will be our first quarter of 2023 reporting, and that'll give us a good guidance for the year and whether the country is basically going to slip into recession or not. But they'll be telltale signs before that happens.
Well, I mean, one of the things I like about markets.com and Leigh-Ann, of course, being a professional on the markets as well, she knows all about this. She knows.
I think I know.
She knows everything.
I know a bit more about AI used in banking and insurance and those sorts of things, because I work for a company in the UK that does that, an analytics company. But when it comes to stocks and markets here, I would have to do my research online. I'm no guidance.
Oh, no. I was being sarcastic because, I mean, I don't know anything either. But what I do know is that when the dollar goes up and the rand comes down, as has happened recently, this isn't necessarily the end of the world for people who are traders, because a lot of people are trading in dollars. A lot of people are investing in the dollar, or they're just buying in money markets dollars straight up. So there are ways to also hedge your bets there. How do you think that the US dollar is going to perform going forward? Because again, a lot of people said that was going to hit the wall with all the inflation. Yeah,
so I mean, the US last year has had quite a strong year. I mean, it's strengthened quite a bit. We're getting to a point now where does it continue to strengthen? And what the impact on this is that US companies that generate a lot of their revenue from around the globe, their revenue gets less and less as that dollar gets stronger. So it actually slows down the actual US companies themselves as well. So looking forward, I mean, the dollar's sort of an indication of their treasury market, how well it performs. And that's done, I mean, those treasury yields are at like 4.5%. So it's a very attractive investment at the moment. So you compare that to your equities, and this is also another conundrum we face in the financial world at the moment is your playoff between equities and bonds. Do you want to take the risk of buying into companies when you know they're going to be slowing? Would you go rather buy some safe bonds, paying you the same sort of risk premium for
and can we just, while we're on the dollar, can we talk about dollar priced commodities?
Yeah.
Because that's another thing, commodities are always also an area of some risk, but some people have made some incredible profits out of backing commodities. And we know South Africa is largely an economy based on commodities.
Yeah, I mean, we generally resource driven, so that's very good. And what happens when our companies locally, like our bigger miners, and you see the likes of the rand weakening, as we saw from Friday's announcement, and these companies will generate more profits. A lot of their revenues are all generated offshore. So as the rand weakens for them, profits are driven up through the roof.
Right.
The conundrum they face is that we've got other issues within South Africa, the ability to deliver and get these commodities sent offshore. We've had a lot of issues, as you know, with Transnet and strikes and so on. So that always impacts everything. So
we have?
No. Oh, Leigh-Ann, all the time. Okay, so building on the answer to the previous thing and so much else of what we've discussed here in this little bit of a conversation about Q1, where do you think the markets are headed next? And what should traders be looking at as we head into the next quarter?
So the biggest focus what's driving the markets at the moment is whether we're going to go into a recession in the States or not. And that indicator is basically going to come out in the next few months. But we need employment in the US to start slowing down. It's at its best. They're almost at full employment at 3.4%.
Wow.
Which is mega good. And this is the case. So if it stays as is, markets will generally sort of grind higher over the year. It's not going to be an easy year, just from what we've come from, what the scenario we're dealing with at the moment. So in our world, we always want to look at the positives. You pointed this out this morning. And the positive I would focus on here is rather what to buy and what to stay away from.
Okay.
So you want to be buying your defensive companies.
By the way, we are not giving you financial advice here. We're just telling you how Dylan sees the market.
I'll reiterate that. It's not financial advice.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're looking at a basket of sort of your defensive companies, your companies that have always been around, and your companies that are very cash generative. And I give you examples like Estee Lauder, McDonald's, like you pointed out. And these are companies that will fare quite well this year. Their growth's not going to be out of this world, but they're going to be consistent. So there's still going to be spend. People are still going to go do their general basic day-to-day shopping. And these companies is sort of your basket of stocks that you want to be holding. if there is talks of a recession or us trying to navigate our way through.
So what we do here, food, you mentioned.
Yeah,
okay,
food, your staples, so your Estee Lauders, your McDonald's.
Women are not going to stop buying makeup, in other words.
It's going to continue.
All it takes is one influencer to topple something like Estee Lauder, so be careful.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, women are not going to stop buying that stuff. You know,
it's your day-to-day things that you
right. And what else would you say are defensive companies, even in a local context?
In South Africa, you look at like British American Tobacco.
Okay, smokers can't help themselves.
You can't, and your consumer discretion. So your day-to-day, some of your retailers. Right. But look, South Africa is a complete different discussion to the US. We lag quite a bit in terms of how the economic data impacts our stocks and companies. And that's why we focus on the US. I mean,
right.
It's just up to date. It's very efficient. So it's a good market to actually be involved in.
All right. Well, let's turn our attention also to stocks or securities in general that you think are particularly resistant to a tightening market. So where would you say people should look? I mean, you've answered this partly in your last question, but where, besides the US stock market, would you say that there are other places that you should be looking in an economy where things are maybe slowing down a little bit?
So from a slowing down perspective, I mean, the US is slowing down. So it's economy that's slowing down.
Absolutely.
One of the economies that are doing quite well and that just come through sort of COVID is China. And China's just reopened now. So, and they're still vowing to spend a lot of money on the economy. And if you look at other Asian countries like Japan, they've just come out of they've had no inflation for the past 12 years. And only in the last year have they come out of that, which is inflationary, which is in general good for your stock market because you've got prices and goods going up and you'll have more people spending more money. So the Japan and some Asian countries have actually just come out of this. It's actually very positive.
So would you be looking at Japan?
Yeah, I certainly would. Specific stocks, I mean, and we talked about this earlier, some buzzwords like your AI. There's a couple of smaller companies in China that have been investing in AI for the last 5 to 6 years. They're actually very well versed in this already. I'm not going to mention any names, but there are, I mean, there's local ties to companies like that. You could probably, guess I will mention some names
Go on.
to make it a bit easier to explain. Locally, we got exposure to Tencent via Naspers.
Right.
And then there's also companies like Baidu. Baidu is probably one of your better, well-known AI companies over in China. And you got JD.com. You got quite a few bigger names. Alibaba, not in AI, but those are sort of your general US listed Chinese companies that should fare well over the next few years.
Well, I'm very happy that you came in this morning because it's always better to see people face to face. And I think most of us are quite tired of having to do things virtually. So it's always much, much nicer if you can actually see the person and kind of, have the experience of being in their company rather than just seeing them through a screen. So
that's all worn off. That novelty.
Yeah. But thank you, Dylan. Nice to actually meet you for the first time. I can't believe we've been doing this for a couple of months. We've had you on so many times.
First time you've actually met.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there we go. Markets Mondays brought to you by markets.com. Remember to follow the link on cliffcentral.com to register with markets.com. You will get a 30% bonus on your deposit, and you can follow them on all the social media. It is 8 o'clock, so we're pretty much wrapping it up for the morning. Thank you for being a part of the show, and a big thank you to everybody who was in the comments section this morning. I know we promised we would take live calls. I brought in an old phone with a SIM card in it, which we can connect to this thing. I'll do it from tomorrow. We're not going to do it today.
Nokia?
Well, almost. I don't even think this thing can. I don't think there's an upgrade available for this. Look,
it's quite trim and slim compared to our phones these days.
I know. It almost makes me feel like I should have one of those again.
Yeah.
But no, I think we've moved on.
Okay.
All right. From tomorrow, phone calls. So get ready for that. Then we don't just have the comments section. We can actually do phone calls live as well, which I'm very excited to do again soon. Have an excellent